Hi there, it's good to be back talking to you this morning. For those that follow my story from a diagnosis point of view, I continue in a more stable period in my arachnoiditis and what I'll call intracranial pressure issues. You know, we can't be sure if the leak's still there or, you know, if it helps or hinders me, but I'm continuing a more stable period. That doesn't mean that things are great in the sense that I am always still ill and I battle with symptoms every single day, all day, but it just means I'm in a more stable place, which is always better to be in. But this morning I wanted to share with you a third video in my series I've called A Crushed Spirit. And as I've said before, when I talk about a crushed spirit, I'm talking about seasons in life where we feel so broken, so crushed, so wounded, that we find it hard to find a way through. And these videos talk about my own experience and my own journey in finding a way through those times. The first video, I talked about the importance of acknowledgement, acknowledging that you're in a really tough time, kind of mentally, and that might be physically, and being honest about that. And the importance of finding people who will support you and validate you in understanding how you're feeling and help support you find a way through. My second video was about acceptance, the importance of accepting our circumstances, and in my case, my illnesses and my restrictions and the way that they kind of cause a lot of debilitation and control in my life, the pain, accepting that and letting go of the life that we thought we wanted to live. And I use the serenity prayer as an example of how that's helped me to find a way through. Now today is my third video and I want to talk about the subject of the mind and the importance of calming the mind. And when I talk about calming the mind, I first want to acknowledge that there are seasons, particularly when you're in these seasons of a despair or a crushed spirit, that your mind is out of control. And during those times, it can feel absolutely impossible to control your mind. And I agree that sometimes you can't in those times. You have to get help and support and medication, and you need to be sleeping, and you need people to talk to, and you need support from doctors to help you find a way through to a more stable place that you can begin to put into practice some of what I'm talking about today. But I wanted to first acknowledge that I've been through seasons where my mind has been utterly out of control. I compare those times to a snowball, you know, that's kind of going down a hill and picking up snow, and your mind is just out of control. Your thoughts are out of control. The negativity is out of control. Everything is awful. One of those times for me was my last relapse before the arachnoiditis diagnosis. So I was diagnosed with arachnoiditis in the summer of 2020, but my relapse before that was the spring of 2019. It was a mixture of a relapse, I think, that was coming, and then a complete physical and mental breakdown of trying to deal with and push myself in this illness for so long. And for me, it was just the deadly combination of both immensely horrendous symptoms. The pain levels were out of this world. It was pain in my head, pain in my neck, pain in my spine, 24/7. I wasn't sleeping. And then it was an inner pain of all the trauma of my journey kind of coming to a head. I had managed to kind of keep going for a while and not had a flare for a while. I was up a lot of the day, but it was exhausting because every single day was just full of trying to manage my symptoms. And there was another dynamic to it that I was absolutely petrified that my doctors were going to say they couldn't do anything for me anymore, and that I would be stuck in horrendous pain, not being understood, perhaps not being believed. And that they wouldn't be able to help me, because at that point we hadn't even seen the CSF leak. We didn't know about the arachnoiditis, and it was horrendous. And I want to read to you a poem that I wrote, and this is, if you go to my blog and look for the article A Window into a Suicidal Mind, which should come up on the home screen of my blog, it will have this poem and more about that season in 2019. And I wrote the article once I was doing better and able to better process, because it was just too horrifically painful at the time, and there was just too much shame, too much pain. It was awful. But this is the poem I wrote back then. The torment of pain. Pain torments you. It pulls, pushes, and wrestles with your mind. Persistent pain consumes you until nothing else is left. It eats you alive, leaving your flesh exposed. Infection after infection ravages your thinking. Mind constantly infected, tormented, trying to hold on, trying to hold on, grasping, reaching, clutching by my fingernails, trying to hold on. And in there, in talking about pain, it was for me the intense levels of physical pain, which makes a lot of sense now in understanding arachnoiditis and their flares. But it was also trauma that later on, a number of months later, when I was doing better, I had some one-to-one trauma counselling with a therapist, and we went through some of the trauma in my medical journey, and that helped. But in that article, I also say, and you just can't snap out of it, or just think positive thoughts, or rein in your thoughts, or simply change your perspective. You no longer have that ability. Your mind is no longer your own. And that's a key thing for me when you're in a season of a crushed spirit. It can feel like your mind is no longer your own. It's snowballed, it's out of control. And at first, during that time, I needed support from the GP. There was a bit of a delay, which is one of the reasons it got so bad so quickly. I needed sleeping tablets, I needed pain medication, I needed nerve medication. There were various things that helped me just about, not as much as once we understood the right medication, one being on the arachnoiditis, but it got me through that time. But I also want to talk about how we can come out of that once the initial kind of season has been stabilised, once you've been stabilised, that you can begin to come out of that. And I think one of the most important things, number one, is getting what you're thinking out into the open. And that again goes back to my first video, an acknowledgement. Honesty, you need someone who's strong and supportive and non-judgmental to speak to and be honest with. That the number one person for me was my husband, but there were other people involved. A GP who during the really bad stage would call me up every day and was ready to call in the psychiatry crisis team if I needed it. But she was brilliant and has been great in helping stabilise me. But getting what you're thinking out in the open, be honest with people about how you're feeling. I was immensely suicidal, and I had to be honest about that, and that is really hard, because the thing is, with being suicidal, there's such shame. Honesty is so important that you talk to someone. 2, during these seasons and as you're coming out of them, you need to protect your mind. What I mean by that is be very careful what you're allowing into it. Try and avoid things that trigger the anxiety and the negativity. For me, often kind of social media, or even medical support groups, which can be great in at the right times. But I wasn't in a place to be able to deal with that at that time, or deal with, other people's stories or kind of issues. TV, I had to be very careful with what I watched, even things that were just, light-hearted or, quite dramatic, medical dramas. I couldn't cope with. I had to be very, very careful and selective about what I allowed in my mind. You have to be careful who you speak to, and not allowing too much negative stuff into your mind. Be careful what you're reading, what you're looking into. And it's really hard because when you have a medical condition, you can want to do your research, and that's a mix because it can provide hope, but it can also bring more anxiety and negativity. So, you know, it's getting the balance right there and trying to read kind of each day and each hour, you know, is this uplifting me? Is this helpful to me? Or is this hindering me? The third thing that I wanted to say is thought replacement. Now, I don't mean denial. You know, the first thing is acknowledging how you are. But I mean, for me, bombarding my mind with better thoughts and better things to think about. So for me, picking music and songs that were uplifting and calming, for me, it helps because I listen to a lot of Christian music and a lot of Christian worship music, and engaging in that really helped me. Songs about our brokenness and our weakness and lifting off that shame and connecting with God. Love was a real anchor for me. So listening to things about love, or teachings, or Christian guided meditations, or prayer apps, or stories, people's testimonies about going through really broken times and coming through. Anything that would provide me with hope was really important. And then number 4, I've written here, is gratitude. Focusing on the mind on what I do have rather than what I don't have. For me, focusing in on my family, my husband, the support I had, the doctors I did have supporting me, being thankful for that. A house, a roof over my head. For me, living in the UK, the NHS, the fact that my medical care was free, although it means a lot of waiting, but that is a blessing. That we were financially stable. So that's just some thoughts that I hope will equip you moving forward and out of a season of a crushed spirit. And I just finally wanted to share a quote from a theologian called Henry Nouwen. I don't think I've said that right, but Henry Nouwen. And it says, "O Lord, you know me more deeply and more fully than I know myself. You even offer me more than I can desire. Take my tired body, my confused mind, and my restless soul into your arms and give me rest. Simple, quiet rest." And I just want to pray that you will find rest today for your soul and for your mind, and a way forward. And if you have ways of calming the mind, then please share them in the comments so that we can learn together. I hope to make one more video in this series before moving on.